hockey helmet.
I think that he was supposed to send a helmet to the Hall of Fame and didn't send the game-used helmet to the Hall of Fame. Yes, he.
There's this one piece. I'm reading an article about it, right? Exhibit 18.
I know it well.
Doesn't sound very good for him because it's an email in which someone says, "Hey, Joe, my buddy was offered an Eli game-used helmet and jersey. Are those the BS ones Eli asked you to make up because he didn't want to give up the real stuff?" And the reply to the email is BS ones. You are correct. That almost sounds like they were under investigation already, like it was evidence they were set up. And like you have to get them on wiretap, admitting everything exactly to the murder in the car with the weapon at the time. All of that. I mean,
It's a game of Clue.
Yeah, are these the BS ones Eli asked you?
There's no BS with this guy. He's Frank Isola with the New York Daily News. Frank, is this a big deal? Should this be a bigger deal with Eli Manning?
I was going to say, I bought a Dan Patrick game-worn NBC Sunday Night Football sports coat, and now you're trying to tell me it could be fake.
Yeah, no, it is fake. It is fake.
You dirty rat.
Yes, just like my hair, it's fake, Frank.
I'm the same way. By the way, here's my thing about Eli Manning. First, and I heard you guys talking about it. He's got so much money already. Why do you even want to go down this road with this nonsense? I do think it's a big deal. And I think when you get into this whole world of merchandise and memorabilia, you know, are guys paying taxes for stuff like this? The whole thing seems to be a little shady, that's for sure.
But does the NFL get involved in this at some point?
Well, I'll bet you a team like New England would hope that the NFL would get involved because they certainly got involved with Tom Brady. Now, you're going to tell me that's an on-the-field thing? Absolutely. But this does deal with off the field, and they do get involved in issues like that. I'm just surprised because, you know, Eli Manning has a squeaky clean image, and as you guys know, the Giants, they're the kind of the one team in New York that's kind of seen as, more than the others, the class organization. But the Giants are also good at spinning stuff, so they'll make it out to be that it was a charitable thing that Eli Manning did. Somehow they're able to spin it. The great Pat Hanlon can spin it some way. He's their PR guy, by the way.
How surprised were you that Governor Christie called out Eli Manning, calling him a liar?
How incredible is that? When some of the things he's been involved in, and we know that he loves to hug Jerry Jones when the Cowboys score a touchdown in the playoffs, which doesn't happen often. So, but you know what? We also know what this is, Dan. Chris Christie is looking to compete against you because he wants to become a radio sports talk show host. So I think that's part of it, to be somewhat controversial, get his name out there, because I think that could be where he's headed.
Well, that's the normal progression, is that you go from governor to then sports talk show host. So I understand that. I don't know where I go after this, but I know it's
run for president. He ran for president. That's the only thing you don't have.
All right, Frank, give me the last week. Summarize the last week for the New York Knicks.
Probably much like most of the past 17 years, a lot of chaos, a lot of dysfunction. And I think, on Friday when Phil Jackson came out and, really, trying to paint the picture that everything will be fine once Carmelo Anthony leaves. And I think there's a lot of people that are convinced, he's probably right about that. And then the situation with Kristaps Porzingis, where I have a young player who's 21 years old, saying, enough with this nonsense, and doesn't show up for his exit meeting. And I'm not condoning that. Your boss tells you to show up. And first of all, here you are as a 21-year-old kid. And that's, Phil Jackson, Steve Mills, those are, and the head coach are going to be there, and you blow them off. That's not a good look. And, if LeBron had done that, if Carmelo had done that, Kobe Bryant, can you imagine the reaction that you would get? So he shouldn't be a working-class hero for doing that. But I do think it speaks to a larger issue that, there's a lot of nonsense that goes on in the organization. A kid like Porzingis is only 21. He's been a professional player since he was about 15, 16 in Spain, so he kind of knows how the game works, and I don't think he likes the way the Knicks organization is headed. And for that, I do give him credit to be kind of that smart and, kind of willing to put himself out there and skip that meeting.
But what about the Carmelo situation of he knows he's not wanted, he still is going to get paid? Is there a chance that he just makes it so they have to cut him? And also his personal life, now it's reported, and you had it today in the Daily News, of he's separated from his wife, maybe headed for a divorce, and is he headed for 2 divorces here?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And, obviously it adds a wrinkle to what could happen here this summer with Carmelo. The one thing to remember about Carmelo, besides the fact that he was smart enough to get a no-trade clause in his contract, that same contract includes a trade kicker. So he would make he'd make actually more money if he does get traded. But, I do think that Carmelo and his agent, Leon Rose, if they decide, Carmelo likes it here, we're going to force the Knicks' hand, and make the Knicks cut us. Now, the Knicks could say, all right, you know what, you stay here, we're going to make you the sixth man, which I'm sure Carmelo wouldn't be thrilled with doing. But by becoming a free agent, obviously he would then be able to, pick and choose where he wants to go. And he has said, he was probably dropping hints over the past year because he kept talking about, waiving his no trade clause, and he kept talking about how much his family enjoys it here. And his son is in an AAU, a popular AAU program in New York. His son likes going to school here. That doesn't mean there aren't other places in the country where the kid can't go to school and play for an AAU team. But I think for Carmelo, I think the fact that his son is comfortable and that Carmelo is on the road, for 41 road games a year, I think he likes the fact that he has a foundation here. So I think, all things being equal, Carmelo doesn't want to leave. But let's also remember, we have a lot of time between now and the start of the regular season.
What has this tenure done to Phil Jackson's legacy?
I think, when you look at Michael Jordan, people still look at Michael Jordan as a great player. And that's not to say that Michael Jordan hasn't had a couple of good years here with Charlotte. So I think with Phil, I think it hurts his legacy from the standpoint that it wasn't just him in these great teams in Chicago and L.A. And I think he probably has a lot more respect now for Jerry Krause and for Jerry West, how difficult it is sometimes to put this whole thing together. So I think he's always going to be remembered as a great coach. But, it's hard to say, that he has the chops to be a great executive. It's 166 losses after 3 seasons. And, after he went for it last summer and signed Noah, traded for Derrick Rose, signed Jennings, and signed Courtney Lee, the Knicks still ended up with more losses this year than they did last year. So he still has 166 losses, and after 3 years, he's not telling you he wants to rebuild.
Can you rebuild, though, with the Knicks? And, it's like the Lakers, that there's a certain standard that's there. Granted, it's a lower standard with the Knicks, but can you just say, hey, we're going to get worse before we get better?
100%. And I think that's always the mistake of everyone that takes over the team. That should be the first thing they say, because the fans are definitely willing to be patient with something like that. And the Knicks are still selling out every game. So I don't think that's ever going to be a problem. I actually think it's easier in a market like New York. And I think a lot of fans now, they like the great unknown. And that's why everyone's so focused on the NFL draft and the NBA draft, because they think that every player in the draft is going to be the guy that's going to change their franchise. So I definitely think you can do it in New York, because here's the thing. They've been rebuilding in New York. They just haven't admitted it. Now, Phil Jackson is admitting it now that he wants to rebuild, and that's only because he's trying to buy himself more time after 3 failed seasons. But I think the fans aren't as demanding as people think that they are. I think a lot of people like going to the games to see who the celebrities are, to see what stars are on another team. I do think there are hardcore fans that are upset with it, but I think for the most part, in New York, you can rebuild.
Hair's looking good on Pardon the Interruption there, Frank.
Thanks, Dan. From you, I definitely take that as a compliment. I appreciate it.
And you should. Thank you. That's Frank Isola, the Knicks NBA beat writer, New York Daily News, also occasionally on Around the Horn, and gets an upgrade there to Pardon the Interruption co-host as well.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.